boy on trips. Okay, he had a very close, strong relationship with little David. He and his wife had an argument, and he thought that the argument meant that he would never see his son David again. He committed an unspeakable crime. As David slept, Charles poured kerosene around the room, lit a match, ran from the room, sped away in a white car. Later, Charles claimed he intended to stay in that room and die together with David. But of course, when fire came, he panicked, and he left. And the child did not have that option. The child stayed there and was burned over almost all of his body. He was left permanently disabled and disfigured by this horrible crime. Now, it didn't take long for the cops to find Charles Rothenberg. They arrested Charles wearing a pin stating, "Kids are special," just a few days after the horror. He confessed to trying to kill David. He said that his wife threatened to prevent Charles from seeing David again, so he wanted the two of them to die together. "If I couldn't have him, nobody could." Okay, now what type of man commits this brutal crime against his child? Charles Rothenberg was a product of orphanages. Born to a single mother, his childhood was spent shuffling between his mother and orphanages. Okay, that tells you a lot right there. He was in orphanages. He didn't have stability. He didn't have the sort of complete love that a child is entitled to. And he grew up defective. He himself was disabled and disfigured by his background. That's not an excuse. I'm giving you a reason. He was damaged, and the damage he inflicted was beyond words. It was horrible beyond words. David was still hospitalized when he asked Marie, "Mommy, did my daddy do this to me?" He was recovering from being burned over 90% of his body. Marie told him he had. David asked, "Why did Daddy do this to me?" Marie said Charles was sick and went crazy. David burst into helpless sobs. He later declared, "I never want to see my dad again." Okay, now when he returned to school, classmates welcomed him like a celebrity. Okay, but he had many problems growing up because of the disfigurement. Casual cruelty, when people exclaimed, "Did you see that?" Or, "What an ugly kid." Okay, now, as it happens, he did grow up to be psychologically apparently a normal person. He got enough love from his mother Marie and from his stepfather that he did not grow up to be a mentally disturbed man. And he grew up to be a successful abstract artist. He changed his name to Dave to free himself from the Rothenberg name and the criminality of his father. Charles Rothenberg, in order to avoid the persecution of being a baby burner, changed his name to Charlie Charles. Now, there is a kind of oddity in there in how similar these men changed their names, who hated each other, were father and son. Well, they didn't hate each other. I don't know if they hated each other, but with good reason, Dave hated Charles. But anyway, he did see him as an adult. There was a visit in the jail that both men requested. It was incorrectly described by a reporter as a reunion. It wasn't a reunion. It was a confrontation. Dave Rothenberg, Dave, had written what he wanted to say to his father, and he'd written it down, and he read it as they were behind glass and couldn't get at each other. He read it, and he said, and part of it said, "Charles, you are not a father. You are an imposter." And he basically told him how evil he had been and how much he hated him. And he says, I was nervous, but the moment I saw him, I just ripped him to shreds. I beat him up verbally. He had the nerve to keep telling me he loved me. I screamed at him, "Look at me. You don't love me, you lying son of a bitch." In 30 minutes, I got 14 years of bottled up emotions off my chest. He was shaking as I yelled at him. Was he upset? I damn well hope so. I walked into that jail all stressed out, but as I left, I realized a great weight had been lifted from my shoulders. So he had a sense of catharsis. And he later said, "I'm getting on with my life, and I never need to see that bastard father of mine again." Okay, and he described his father as shaking, which means that he did get to him. He let him know what he thought of him. And anyway, in 2005, he was charged with being a felon. Charles was charged with being a felon in possession of a handgun. Okay, and he got life imprisonment under the California's 3 strikes law. One of the people behind that was our present Vice President, Kamala Harris.